If you keep blaming your ex, your boss, or your parents for how your life is currently, you are giving them control and power over your peace. So today I'm going to talk about personal responsibility and ownership and how you can make sure that you keep yourself from being in victimhood and you take ownership for your life. I'm Kim Gross, and I'm the host of Masks Off for People Pleasers and Perfectionists, and I'm so glad that you're here today. So what I want to first do is share with you actually how I shared in my book, Free to Be, A Pathway to Inner Liberation, how I used to show up as a victim because I couldn't take ownership for how my marriage was. So I'm going to share with you an excerpt from the book, Free to Be, A Pathway to Inner Liberation. So I share, the years when I was dependent on my husband to fill my needs created many issues in our relationship. My sense of self had become incredibly weak, and I blamed my husband for how miserable I felt. Whenever there's a victim, there's always a villain, and I made my husband the villain. Blaming was the only way I knew to fix the situation. So one of the masks that I used to wear was that of the fixer. I believe that if he would only listen to me and do the things the way that I thought he should do them, everything would be fine. I wouldn't have to look in the mirror and I wouldn't have to change my patterns if he would just simply change his. The reality is that we cannot change people, places, and things. So I felt powerless. I used to see him as this judgmental, critical, and rigid villain, when in truth, I was actually judgmental, critical, and rigid with myself, constantly judging myself and feeling like I was falling short. My husband was only mirroring the way that I saw myself, and I needed to break free from that in order to live the life I desired. So it took me a really, really long time to understand that if I wanted to change anything in my life, that I had to take ownership and I had to do the work of healing. I had to do the work of changing my patterns because there's no one on the outside that's going to come and rescue you and save you from your life as it is. And so I talk about this all the time on this podcast. It's just so easy to fall into this place of blaming other people. It's a lot easier to blame the boss, to blame the ex, to blame your boyfriend, to blame your friends, your parents, instead of really looking in the mirror and seeing where you need to change. So again, just as I shared in that story from my book about my husband, it was so much harder for me to own the fact that I really needed to grow up. I needed to sometimes just grow a set and stand up for myself, speak up and assert myself. For example, if we were trying to decide what to do for the weekend or where to go to dinner, and he would say, let's go to this particular restaurant. And then I was so tired of going to that same old, and I did not want to go there again, but I didn't want to fight. I was avoiding the conflict. So I would acquiesce and just say, okay, fine, but then feel miserable that I let him make the decision. Now, how can I really blame him? Because at the end of the day, if that's not what I wanted, if I wasn't aligned with going to that particular place, then I needed to stand my ground and set a boundary. So sometimes it's okay to, sometimes it is okay to just be cooperative and to go with the flow, especially if it doesn't matter that much. And a lot of times it doesn't really matter to me where we go to eat, but there are certain times where I'm like, okay, I'm so done with this restaurant. I really don't want to go here tonight. And those are the moments when I have to just really speak up. And if I don't, and then I feel miserable about it, I only have myself to blame. So the day that I stopped saying, and the day that I stopped believing that my husband was making me feel a certain way, and I started to ask the question of why am I allowing it, that's when things really started to change. Because again, it was like, okay, I can only control and I can only change me. My responses, my reactions. I can't change or control him. So when we're taking ownership, we are just simply, needed a sip of water. We are simply just claiming that our lives are our responsibility. My happiness, my emotions, my mental state, my choices, those are all my responsibility. And it's not about blaming or shaming the other. It is more about being able to claim your power and have agency over your life. That's what this is about. This isn't about blaming. This isn't about making you feel bad because you have struggled to speak up. This isn't to make you feel bad because you let your boss overpower you over and over again, or you continue to say yes to your friends to doing certain things when you really didn't want to. This isn't about making you feel wrong for that or making you feel bad. There's nothing to feel wrong or bad about. This is just basically how you were conditioned. You were raised to be this way, to say yes when you really wanted to say no. You were conditioned to believe that the adults in your life were all powerful, all knowing, and you didn't dare speak up or speak out against your elders. I mean, I'm 57, so I grew up in a generation where I absolutely would have been petrified or mortified to speak out against my parents. Very few people, I think, in my generation did that. And so I was just conditioned to be quiet, to not speak up, and to whatever they said goes. It's my way or the highway kind of thing. And that can really do a number on your psyche. And I really just want you to know that it's not your fault, but it's also not a green light for you to just keep blaming your parents or your caregivers who raised you. It's about, okay, sure, this is how it started. This is why you're where you are now. But whether you're listening as a young adult, someone in your early 20s, or you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, it is not about blaming the people in your life anymore. It's about now taking responsibility for changing your life and creating the life that you desire. It's not about if you're burned out at your job, but you won't leave, so you're blaming the job, or you're blaming your intimate relationships for the pain that you're feeling. those circumstances may be true, but it's up to you ultimately to make choices. So if you are completely burned out at your job, it's life sucking, you're miserable at it, and you're like, oh, how can I go there one more day? But you're not looking for another job. It's really on you then. You're putting yourself in this victim place because you feel powerless. You're like, I hate this job. I'm miserable at it. But you aren't taking the responsibility or the ownership to do anything about it. Now you might say, well, yeah, but I have rent to pay and I have my car payment, I have car insurance, and I do want to be able to go out from time to time with my friends. How can I quit my job? And I'm not saying quit your job without having something as a backup. What I'm saying is while you're getting ready to leave that job that you're miserable at, you are looking for something else. And you stay at your current job until you find something else. And then once you find an alternative job, then you can go ahead and quit it. The same is true for friendships or boyfriend, intimate relationships. If you feel that these relationships are doing nothing but sucking the energy out of you, it's not on them. You can't sit there and say, oh my God, I was just like on the phone with my friend for 3 hours and all she did was cry and complain about how miserable her life is. And then I got off the phone with her and I felt so exhausted, so drained that I couldn't even do anything. And then you're blaming her. It's like, oh, my friend, it's so hard. She drives me crazy, or it's so hard to be friends with her because she's so negative. So I would again say, in terms of taking ownership and pulling yourself out of the victim loop, is to ask yourself, like, what is it that you can do differently? Or what are you doing in this situation to keep yourself stuck in the victim loop? Are you setting a boundary with this friend? Are you saying, maybe the boundary is, look, I want to be here for you. I really do. I want to support you, but I can't be on the phone for 3 hours. I can give you 1 hour, or maybe I can give you 45 minutes. Or here's another boundary, maybe a little bit more difficult, but still a worthy boundary, is you tell your friend, look, I really care about you. I love you as a friend. We have so many good laughs together. But I want to just say that sometimes when we're on the phone together and you're sharing with me how miserable you are, it's really, really hard to continue to listen to that when all you do is complain about it and you don't make any decisions to do anything differently, right? And then you would be in the same category if you continue to listen to this friend just go on and on and on and vent all the time and do the same old, same old. If you are doing the same thing by not setting a boundary with her, there's that saying of doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. So you're doing something very similar. You're just getting caught in this loop. But what I want you to understand about the loop is that it's very normal, because basically it's a way to cope. It's a coping strategy that you learned at one point in time, that it was safer or easier for you to blame someone else than to actually do something different. To step out of your comfort zone and set the boundary is scary. Let's face it. It's really scary to speak up and say that to your friend, or to tell a boss, like, hey, listen, I can't stay here every night, until 10 o'clock at night, or I really love this job, but I'm feeling burned out because you're giving me so much extra work and it's not in my job description. Like, those are scary things to say, because what? Your boss could fire you, your friend could say, screw you, I'm done being friends with you, the boyfriend could leave you. And so you're afraid of being abandoned, you're afraid of being rejected, you're afraid of someone being upset with you. So you don't rock the boat, you don't upset the apple cart, and you do the same old, and you keep yourself in this victim loop. So it's just a strategy to try to keep yourself safe. You learned this such a long time ago. So it's understandable, but it is keeping you powerless. Let's face it. When you're in a victim position, you're powerless. You're not powerful if you're a victim. So what I want to help you to do is understand how to become more powerful, which is why I created my 5-step power pathway. And the second step of the 5-step power pathway is ownership. And so this is where you get to choose your reactions. This is where you get to stop waiting for someone else to come and fix your life. This is where you get to set boundaries. And this is where you get to transform yourself so that you can move into taking more action. So I want to share with you, let's just give a couple of different scenarios and talk about how you can maybe make some changes. So let's say that you continue to feel like, or say that your ex is really toxic, but you stayed. So what was that about? My ex was so toxic. He was so controlling. He was so demeaning. He kept putting me down all the time. He was constantly making comments about my body, or telling me that I wasn't smart enough, or like, why are you doing that? That's so stupid. And you would feel so small, so insignificant, so hurt, like it was painful. But you continue to stay. You continue to tolerate the behavior. Or maybe he would one day shower you with attention and love bomb the hell out of you and tell you you're the best thing since peanut butter. And then all of a sudden he's like disappearing on you. He's going ghost. And then you're feeling rejected, or you're feeling unwanted, but yet you continue to still like hang on. So that's a situation as well where you are finding yourself caught in a powerless position. Let's say that, again, we talked about if you hate your job, but you haven't looked for another one. Same thing, keeps you stuck in this powerless position. Or maybe you are the kind of friend who is the one who is always giving to all of your other friends. You're supporting them nonstop. You are the one who picks up the phone. You answer the texts all the time. But when it comes to you having a hard time, or you're struggling with something in your life, you're feeling a little down, you're in a funk, and you don't even think to reach out and ask your friend for help. You just hold it all in. You remain stoic. You remain in a place where you make it look like everything is perfectly fine on the outside, when in truth, you're crumbling inside. You're really, really struggling. And your friends, they just keep taking more and more from you, draining more and more of your energy, but you haven't set any boundaries, or you haven't spoken up and said, you know what, I just really could use some support right now. I could really use a friend because I'm having a really tough time. I feel so overwhelmed and so burned out, and I can't get out of my own way. Do you think that you could support me? If you don't do those things and you still continue to feel miserable, it's like, okay, well, who's that on then? So if you want to be able to have more freedom and you want to feel more power, have more power, feel empowered, then you have to be able to take personal responsibility for all of these things or in these situations. Here's a couple of things that you can do. Number one, it's really important to become self-aware. It is so important to have laser focus on when these patterns are showing up. Now, here's why I say that. Because for most of us, myself included, when I was in my 20s or in my 30s, is I just thought that's how I was. I thought that's how everyone was. Like when I was in a victim place and I was giving away my power to other people, I just thought it was the normal way to do things. And I didn't know what I didn't know. But now that I know better, I do better. I know those are a bunch of freaking cliches, but what are you going to do? When they work, they work. So it's becoming super aware, having laser focus of when your patterns show up. And then it's about like just pausing and reflecting on when you are trying to blame someone else. It's like trying to catch yourself. For example, I have many different patterns that show up all the time. And I'm always catching myself. I'm looking for them. I'm like, oh, okay, that's a pattern. Oh, I see how I used to do that. And I don't do it to be hard on myself or to make myself wrong. I do it because when I can see the pattern and I'm aware of it and I can recognize that I'm in a pattern, then I can do something different. I can take a different action. So that's what I'm gonna offer for you to do and suggest is number one, when you're aware, just to pause, reflect, and catch yourself. And then you can ask yourself this question next. What is mine to own in this situation? Because let's face it, there may be situations where your boss, your ex, maybe even your parents are acting like an asshole. I am not going to sit here and tell you that there aren't people out there that are manipulative, that there aren't people out there that aren't vindictive, judgmental, critical, mean, rude, a bully. They are. But what I'm saying is when you interact with those people, what is yours to own? What part of the situation is for you to take responsibility in? Is it setting a boundary? Is it that you have to walk away? Is it that you have to assert yourself? Is it that you just leave altogether, leave the job? Or maybe it is you let it roll off your back if it's not that big of a deal. You have to choose what type of response you want to give. But at the end of the day, it's like, what choices do you have or response do you have? Next thing is you can ask yourself, and this does go along with the question I just presented, is where are you giving your power away? That should be like a key question for you. When you're feeling like you're triggered, when you feel like a victim, when you notice that you want to go into blaming another person or blaming a situation, you can ask yourself, where are you giving your power away? And then you can reframe and say something like this. Instead of saying, he did this to me and I'm so pissed off, or she made me feel, or my boss made me feel this. Instead of saying that they made you something, because no one can make you feel anything at all, you can instead say, I felt blah, 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 when this happened, when whatever the situation is. I felt really angry when my boss gave me a ton more work to do. I felt afraid when my boyfriend was screaming and shouting at me, so on. So I encourage you to choose one area of your life this week, one situation where you can take some ownership. So look at all the ways that you show up when you feel triggered, when you feel like a victim, you feel like you're blaming. Pick one of them, and then I invite you to DM me on Instagram, or you can tag me and share with me your ownership moment and what you did differently. And then I will leave you with this reminder. Freedom doesn't come from control. It comes from taking responsibility. So again, essentially, ownership is the bridge between feeling like a victim to having freedom. That's why my book is called Free to Be, a Pathway to Inner Liberation. It's a pathway to inner liberation. And it's about how I spent my life being in victimhood, living in victimhood, to living a life that I create and living a life where I have more freedom and more peace than I've ever had in my entire life. And I detail and outline my entire transformation in my book. So you can hop on over to Amazon.com and pick up your copy if you are interested in reading the whole story. And again, I thank you so much for being with me for another episode of Masks Off for People Pleasers and Perfectionists, and I will see you next time.
Hey, Kim Gross here. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Masks Off for People Pleasers and Perfectionists. I invite you to hop on over to my website, kimgrosscoaching.com. Right there on the front page, there's a quiz for people pleasers and perfectionists. You can find out if you have tendencies. You can also get into my newsletter where you will be given valuable content every week on different topics I share here in the podcast. And if you really did enjoy this episode, if you found it helpful, if you found it valuable, please go to, if you're on YouTube, go and subscribe. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, then I invite you to leave a review. You can even do a star review. It doesn't have to be a written review. If you know of someone who can benefit from this podcast or this particular episode, please share it with them. I'll see you next time.